Before I start getting into what I want to get into, I just want to give you guys a little heads up. The NFL schedule should be coming out later this week. The NFL schedule always comes out a week before the draft, so expect it on around Thursday. Usually it's like exactly a week before the draft. Sometimes it's the Wednesday, the week before the draft, if that makes sense. So it could come out this Wednesday or this Thursday, but most likely it's going to be this Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Time. That's the time it usually tends to come out. Of course, there will be some leaks beforehand, so you'll know about a few games that the Texans are playing before the full schedule releases. Just want to let you guys know, keep your eye out. If you guys are wanting to know the official schedule, meaning what week we play teams, what time, is it on Fox, is it on CBS, are we going to be on Monday Night Football that week, are we going to be on Sunday Night Football, when do we play on Thursday Night Football, when do we play in London, and all that other fun stuff that you guys might want to know. All that comes out later this week, so stay tuned for that. I will do a schedule breakdown whenever the schedule does come out. I'm not going to do any predictions on the schedule when it comes out because, again, the draft is still a week and a half away, so there's really no point of me predicting our win-loss record if I don't know who we're going to have from the draft and who the other teams are going to have from the draft, so that makes a significant difference in these teams, so I'm not going to release my prediction video till after the draft, at some point after that, so yeah, don't expect a prediction video from me this Friday. However, I will do a breakdown and give you my thoughts on the schedule, whether I like it, whether I hate it, whether it favors us or it doesn't. So yeah, that's that. Now let's move on to some things I want to talk about. First, let's talk about Jadeveon Clowney. Yesterday, Aaron Wilson on Twitter posted this, pretty much saying that Jadeveon Clowney is going to hold out through little workouts, OTAs, minicamp, training camp, and all that stuff. He's going to hold out through all that, and to some surprise, some Texans fans are like shocked, like, what? Get the deal done. Like, this is, like Aaron Wilson said at the end of the tweet, like, this is standard procedure. Like, every single franchise tagged player holds out through OTAs, minicamp, training camp, and preseason. Why? So they can avoid injury. That's pretty much it. They avoid injury. They play week 1. They play the season. They try to ball out and get a new contract. They're just trying to avoid injury so they don't mess up their chances at an even bigger contract. Would Clowney like a long-term extension right now? Of course. Will he get one right now? I don't know. But this is just Clowney protecting himself. And, it's smart by Clowney. He's trying to get paid. The Texans and Clowney haven't come to an agreement yet. Will they? I don't know. I honestly don't know. But if they do, I wouldn't expect it anytime soon because the Texans are focused on the draft. That's their focus right now. I wouldn't expect the Clowney deal till after the draft, maybe around June or July. That's when I would expect the Clowney deal. But as of right now, it'll all probably be quiet. You'll probably hear some speculation about a trade with Clowney maybe, but if the Texans don't trade Clowney within these next 2 weeks, including the draft, then I wouldn't expect the Clowney trade. In my opinion, it would make no sense to trade Clowney after the draft. If you were to trade Clowney, it would make more sense to trade him, right now or during the draft to pick up some picks, but it just wouldn't make sense for me to trade Clowney after the draft. So what I'm trying to say is, if Clowney is still on the Texans after the draft, odds are, I'm about 99% sure that Jadeveon Clowney will be on the Texans next season, and quite possibly longer, but I'm not gonna assure you guys anything, but for the most part he will be on the Texans next season. And I know some Texans fans are freaking out. Man, what if Clowney holds out through the whole entire year? Clowney is not gonna hold out all year. Clowney is gonna show up week 1 and ready to go. That's how it goes with players that are franchise tagged. I know some people might bring up the Le'Veon Bell situation, but that's a totally different situation. The reason why Le'Veon Bell held out like that was because the Steelers were planning on franchise tagging him again, and the only deal that was on the table was a deal with little guaranteed money. So that's why Le'Veon Bell held out. He was franchise tagged for the 2nd straight year in a row, and the Steelers pretty much didn't want to give him a fair deal. So completely different situation. It's like comparing apples to oranges. Clowney's situation with the Texans is different than Le'Veon Bell's with the Steelers. So Jadeveon Clowney will be ready to suit up week 1 unless he gets traded. That's the only way I see Jadeveon Clowney not suiting up for the Texans week 1. So yeah, that's pretty much that on Jadeveon Clowney. Not much else there. All that was expected. So, let's move on to the next thing I want to talk about. And that is D'Onta Foreman. So, I think since the moment he got hurt with the Achilles injury, I have been one of Foreman's biggest doubters. And, I think it's justified. Player tears his Achilles at the running back position, seeing him come back, it's kind of a long shot, and to be fair, I think I probably have been a little unfair to D'Onta Foreman. Literally, the second he tore his Achilles, I was like, oh, there goes his career. And that's how I treated Foreman for, over a year plus. I stopped counting on Foreman. I stopped, even considering him as if he was a piece to this team. But then, this offseason came around, and you guys know me, I'm really active on Twitter especially, but I started, hopping on Instagram and kind of just snooping around. So I came across Foreman's Instagram, and the dude has been posting his workouts non-stop on Instagram. And I'll say this, the guy has made me a believer in him again. He's been working out non-stop. He looks in great shape. He looks agile, quick, and he just straight up looks good. I honestly never thought Foreman would look that good again. And I might even say he looks better than ever. But, of course, that's what he's doing in his workouts. He has to go out there and do it on the field. But, again, like I said, I am on the Foreman hype train again. When we drafted Foreman, I was so excited. Foreman was a guy that I wanted on the Texans. Whenever we drafted him in the 3rd round of 2017, I was so excited. And of course, seeing him explode in that Cardinals game against the Cardinals, it was just so exciting. I was like, man, Foreman's going to be good for us. But of course, then he tears his Achilles, and I pretty much hopped off the Foreman hype train. But now I'm officially back on it. If Foreman can come back and, do good for us, then it's going to do wonders for this team, because the Texans need a big running back like Foreman that can get those tough yards, that can punch it in the end zone. Of course, O-line has a lot to do with it, but I trust Foreman more than I trust Lamar Miller. Lamar Miller, like I've said before, he is average, but with a good O-line, he could look good. Foreman, I think he's just good. And with a good O-line, he'd be really, really good. I think Foreman is better than Lamar Miller. And something quite strange to me is, for whatever reason, Deshaun Watson utilizes Foreman more in the passing game than he does Lamar Miller. Like, just go back to 2017 when Foreman was good and healthy. How did Watson utilize him some of the times? He'd throw the ball to him, dump it down to him. Okay, go to the Eagles game. Deshaun finds Foreman open in the middle of the field, and Foreman goes in for a receiving touchdown. So, maybe there's something there between Deshaun and Foreman, or maybe Foreman's just a better receiving back than Lamar Miller, which to me sounds completely strange because coming out of college, Foreman was not considered a receiving back. That was something he needed to work on, but here in the NFL, the few games that he's played with Deshaun's utilized him more as a receiving back than he does Lamar Miller. So that's something I found a little interesting. So, maybe Foreman coming back to full strength, full speed, and all that good stuff can further elevate Deshaun's game. And maybe instead of holding on to the ball too long, Deshaun starts dumping it down to Foreman. So who knows? But I am again officially on the Foreman hype train. And I'm excited to see him play again for the Texans. But just because I'm on the Foreman hype train doesn't mean the Texans shouldn't draft a running back. I still think the Texans should draft a running back. Obviously not in the first or second round. In the third round, I'd be fine with it. But preferably in the late rounds, I think the Texans could benefit from a straight-up receiving back. Kind of like a guy like Duke Johnson. Obviously, the Texans were involved in some trade talks for Duke Johnson. But personally, I'm not that big a fan of Duke Johnson. I don't think he's all that special. And apparently, the Browns want a little too much for him. So, I'm kind of happy the Texans didn't trade for him. I think he's decent. But, for example, Jordan Howard from the Bears got traded to the Eagles for, I believe it was a 2026 round pick. So if Jordan Howard was worth that much, how much is Duke Johnson worth? Duke Johnson is not a better player than Jordan Howard. He's just not. So obviously you gotta pay for what he's worth. So if the Browns wanted something more than that, I'd say no, because you can draft a receiving back in the draft. So, yeah, no Duke Johnson. I don't really care. The Texans can draft a back in the late rounds of this draft. And, Lamar Miller is scheduled to be a free agent after this season. So, they do kind of need a plan after Lamar Miller. And the Texans, like the Patriots, I know some of you guys are going to hate this, they don't have, I guess, an every down back, a back that does everything for them. They have a bunch of running backs, and each of those running backs do different things. That's just the way the Texans and Patriots operate, as well as some other teams. That's just the way it is sometimes. Some teams have an Ezekiel Elliott, a Todd Gurley type of guy, and then other teams have all these running backs that all do different things, and that's completely fine with me. I don't really mind doing that, but the Texans, they already have, their starting running back and Lamar Miller, who could do a little bit of everything. They have Foreman, the stronger guy. Now they need the little receiving back, so the Texans kind of got to work on that, but I am excited for D'Onta Foreman. Hopefully, he does good for us this upcoming season. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys for today. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.